you want, please.
Okay. Do you see my presentation, right?
Yes.
Okay, so how do we account, and what is the, let's say, the tool for country to report their emissions and to provide information how the target has been achieved and what point they are towards the achievement of the target. This is actually performed by this framework, which is the Enhanced Transparency Framework, where that was established under Article 13 of the Paris Agreement. And the modalities and procedures and guidelines for the implementation of this Enhanced Transparency Framework were established in Katowice, with the Katowice rulebook at COP18 2 years ago, yes, in 2018. No, it's not COP18, sorry, it cannot be, because 21 was Paris, 24, I think. Okay, anyhow. Under this Katowice rulebook, all parties need to provide on a biannual basis, starting from 2024, their biannual transparency report, which is the BTR score. What does contains this report? This report should contain the national inventory report of anthropogenic emissions and removals. That should consist of an inventory document that has a description of all the methods used and the common reporting tables that we will see that needs to be still developed in details. So it has the numbers of the emissions as the currently is submitted every year by developed countries, Annex 1 countries under the convention. This obligation will be extended to all parties. So also developing countries will need to provide this inventory report and greenhouse gas on a biannual basis, while the developed countries will continue to submit annually. Then another important information to be included is the information to track progress of target as identified in the NDC. So no matter what are your targets, but in this every 2 years you have to track the progress against the target. Then another very important information that needs to be included is the information of the support provided to developing countries in terms of financial support, capacity building, and technology transfer. And this needs to be done by developed country only. So how much and what has been provided to the developing countries, and information on support needed and received. And this comes from developing countries only. Then if country wants, they can also include adaptation actions, but mainly the biannual, the BTR, the biannual transparency report, are focused on mitigation and financial support, but mainly mitigation. So those are the main tool, and it's also, I mean, you cannot change it in economy. They sometimes say that if you don't know a process, you cannot change it. So it's really the knowing how your emissions are developing and how they are changing across time is the key information that should drive your mitigation action. So even if this national inventory report will represent a very challenge for many developing countries that have not set up any institutional arrangements that are poor, And there is indeed a real challenge behind. In fact, the guidelines for the Katowice rulebook foresee some flexibility in the completeness, in what you report for developing countries, although these flexibilities in many cases are temporary, so ad interim. So if you, for instance, don't report some gases that you cannot actually avoid, report, then you have to explain why and when and what do you need to improve that. And this will come to a list of needs of the countries that can then provide support to fulfill it, to finalize their, to make their reporting more complete throughout times. So it's also learning by doing, but it's really an important piece to improve the knowledge at global level of the emissions levels and the potential of mitigation reduction. So that's why when I show you this temple with the column, the enhanced transparency framework together with finance is actually one of those important pillars. Therefore, we do have sorry, and another piece that important piece that was added by the Katowice rulebook is also related to the fact that all countries will need to apply the same IPCC guidelines. The IPCC, besides this assessment report that I was telling earlier, they also provide guidelines for the reporting, for the inventory. And these guidelines actually were, the latest one is 2006 guidelines that have been also refined earlier, last year in 2019, there is a refinement of these guidelines. And they, before in the UNFCCC, let's say, world, developing countries could use the other guidelines. So there was this difference actually in the reporting that make actually the two reporting system from developing and developed country not actually really comparable. While under the Paris Agreement, only the most recent guidelines need to be used. And this is a very important step to for the comparability. So the reporting then goes through undergo a technical expert review of the information submitted, mainly on the information related to the inventory. And then after the technical expert review, there is this multilateral facilitative consideration of progress that mainly with respect of the Article 9, which is the financial aspects and the respective implementation of the achievement of the. So it's, but all these expert reviews is actually not, it's as a facilitative process aimed at understanding where you can improve your reporting but it's a facilitative. It's not punishing anybody for not doing things in the right thing, but rather helping countries to do so. The specific guidelines of this technical expert review still need to be decided by negotiations. Then the adaptation goal. If we move now to the other two goals of the Paris Agreement, the second one is actually the adaptation. The Paris Agreement aims to strengthen the global climate change response by increasing the ability of all to adapt to adverse impact of climate change and foster climate resilience. So the global goal on the adaptation has three main pillars: is to enhance adaptive capacity and resilience, to reduce vulnerability, with a view to contribute to sustainable development, and ensuring an adequate adaptation response in the context of the goal of holding average global warming well below 2 degrees. So if you look at that, there is not really a quantified goal, because it's very difficult. It's extremely difficult actually to give a quantification, real quantification on the adaptation, as it is impacts are so variable to conditions. An impact could represent a risk in a country, but not in another one, depending on their national circumstances. So it's really difficult to have one common goal for all and how to express it. So this is something that would need to be defined, but I don't think they will succeed in that. So there is the agreement requires to all parties to engage in adaptation planning and implementation. So inviting parties to submit their national adaptation plans, vulnerability assessment, monitoring and evaluation, and economic diversification. And so to go through adaptation communication that then will need to be recorded in a public registry. And as I said earlier, also the transparency framework allows to report on adaptation. And then I will go back on this global stocktake, which is actually linked to the questions that I had before. That it's I will hold on this, please, because I want to go in that issue on the global stocktake later. But anyhow, in general, the Paris Agreement is a little bit more focused on mitigation rather than adaptation, although it has a big components of adaptation. But I think that's important, because if we don't achieve these two, we don't contain the increase of emissions to 2 degrees, then we won't be able to adapt. So we need to achieve the mitigation goal to allow adaptation. Another important pillar is also this loss and damage mechanism, is the world's international mechanism of loss and damage. This was actually established in 2014 in Warsaw. It's that promotes the implementation of approaches to address loss and damage associated with climate change impacts. So established under the UNFCCC and reaffirmed under the Paris Agreement, Article 8. It's related to the loss and damage. It's that recognize this process to avert, minimize, and address loss and damage associated with climate change impacts, including extreme weather events, is low onset events like sea level rising or recurrent drought. So not only the abrupt damages that climate change can create. And then it's mainly devoted to developing countries that are particularly vulnerable to adverse effects of climate change, enhancing, and it has three main work streams. Enhancing knowledge and understanding the comprehensive risk management approaches to address loss and damage, strengthening dialogue, coordination and coherence, and synergies among relevant stakeholders, and then enhancing action and support, including finance, technology, and capacity building. It has also established an executive committee that guides the implementation and the function of the mechanism. I don't know if the presentation will be circulated, but I left some links here where you can explore further all the site website related to those committee work plan. And now this committee is working on 4 focus areas: the slow onset event, non-economic losses, displacement related to adverse impacts and climate change, and comprehensive risk management and transformation approaches. The other aspect, as we said, is also those related to finance, technology transfer, and capacity building. During the Paris Agreement, there was a new global finance target of at least $100 billion per year starting from 2020. The agreement recognized all the UNFCCC financial instruments such as Green Climate Fund, Global Environmental Facility, Adaptation Fund, that shall serve the Paris Agreement as well. It was established that technology framework and capacity building activities, also tools for strengthening educations. As we said, the transparency framework actually includes also financial, technical support and capacity building. As I was saying, developed countries need to provide information on support provided, mobilized, and developing countries on needed and received. Okay, now we go into this main engine. I think this is the global Stocktake, and I come back to the questions we had. I had during the break. The global Stocktake is the main engine of the Paris Agreement. What is it? It's the check that all countries have collectively progressed toward the goal. So every 5 years, all target emission reduction will be accumulated. So it's a collective assessment, not pointing to any country, just to check whether we are on track in achieving the long-term and the NDCs targets, and take stock of the situation. So there is, it's mainly 2 phases. There is, actually it's 3 phases. One is collecting all the information that can allow this process. And then there will be a technical assessment of the process, and then a political phase where parties need to take stock, of the achievement, and understand whether we need to increase our ambition or we are on track to continue to be ambitious as we were. So the first global Stocktake should occur in 2023. And then after 2 years, in 2025, considering the results of this Stocktake, countries need to update their NDC. So it's a cyclical, let's say, process that every 5 years, in 2003 and 2028, the global Stocktake will occur. And then afterwards, after 2 years, countries need to update their NDCs to assess their target, to keep all the collective progress on track with the global targets. So it's the real engine where we actually check if everything is going in the right direction. Having said so, anyhow, this wouldn't point to any NDC or any country. So the collective progress will give a global perspective of where we are, while each country, again, in a bottom-up approach, as it is the Paris Agreement, will need to reconsider their NDCs, and on the basis of their national circumstances, try to raise the ambition. Why I'm saying rise and not lower? Because the Paris Agreement doesn't actually says established that the NDCs can be changed only upward, not downward, in terms of ambition. So you can change your NDC only if you want to increase your ambition, not decrease. So it's not allowed to step back. And then there is, as I said, this voluntary comparison. They are under Article 6. There are two main articles. There is a third one, but I'm not going that because it's a little bit less clear what is including is under negotiation. But the two main, let's say, market mechanism, as although it's never mentioned as such, but only voluntary cooperation. Article 6.2, which is cooperation approach, that refers to countries engaging on voluntary basis in comparative approach to use internationally transfer mitigation outcomes. What does it mean? I mean, it's a translation, let's say, in the Paris Agreement of the emission trading scheme that was under the Kyoto Protocol. So allowing countries to exchange mitigation outcomes, credits, let's say, carbon credits. So it's from one country or group of countries like the EU. The EU is already exchanging credits with Switzerland, with Norway. So, I mean, it's actually something that is going on, and this should be included. But also, China has established an emission trading scheme, a domestic emission trading scheme. So, how these two, like EU and China, could transfer mitigation outcome among them. So, it's connecting markets and connecting NDCs. Then there is the other article, which is Article 6.4, which aims to create a centralized market mechanism under the UNFCCC authority, with the provision that many parties could resemble those that implemented within the CDMJI. Although some parties sees this market mechanism involving whole sector rather than small projects to enhance the effectiveness of this mechanism. Anyhow, this still needs to be established. Anyhow, it has a dual objective of supporting mitigation action and as well as sustainable development. And the details on how this mechanism should be made operational and it's still to be negotiated. I already touched upon those points that anyhow this mechanism, this voluntary cooperation should promote mitigation, sustainable development, incentivize and facilitate participation. And this is actually a key point in mitigation greenhouse gas emission by public and private entities authorized by the party. And they should contribute to the reduction of emission levels in the host country. I mean, it's fundamental it's the entry door for the private entities. They are waiting for to see how this Article 6 market mechanism is framed, or to see whether they mobilize their capital to enter in these mitigation efforts. So it's actually, there's a lot of attention from private companies to see how they can contribute within the market mechanism within Article 6. But what is the challenge? Let's go back to this. The main challenge is actually that before, in the Kyoto regime, we had these carbon credits. That was the coin, let's say, there was a fungibility between carbon credits. Doesn't matter where, it was always a reduction of 1 ton of CO2. This common metric actually is not anymore existing within the Paris Agreement, where we have seen that that the different NDCs are expressed through different metrics, could be adaptation objectives or could be intensity targets or hectares afforested, like hectares to be afforested, or this kind of different metrics need to be transacted. And so how can we actually make all this system to communicate each other, and how we can guarantee, and this is the most important thing, that there is not double counting between the host country and the acquiring country. So that's really tricky on how to make all this communicate within a market or an exchange platform between NDCs, projects, and systems. So this is quite tricky and needs to be still to be decided. So what are the open issues? As I was saying, there is this Article 6 that needs to, what are the correct quantification of units to avoid double counting, as I was saying, how the private sector can be involved, how to increase ambitions. Also in the case of project-based mechanism, should be these projects should belong to sectors that are included in NDC or not? That's quite tricky point, because whether is if you establish that this should be outside the NDCs, country may be pushed not to include many key sectors in their NDC because they want to get the funds from private sector to help them to achieve some targets. So, and it's important that the NDC is economy-wide to avoid any leakage, to avoid that you probably exclude key sectors in your NDCs that actually should contribute to your reduction of emissions. So it's a lot of also the CDM, whether they should continue into the future. Some countries do not want to see at all the CDM to be still alive in the, because they are not considered enough robust as a system, because it has been proved not to achieve sometimes they sell hot air in a sense that are not considered really achieving an added value in terms of emission reduction. So they would like to see in the future Paris Agreement framework something more ambitious, while other countries that have invested a lot, they host a lot of CDM, would like to continue those, to see those to continue, because there are a lot of investment behind. So this is something that needs to be solved, and also the pre-2020 units transition, which is linked to the CDM. And the finance of adaptation also is a key issue, because CDM transactions were subject to a fee, and this fee was actually going to adaptation, to the adaptation fund. So whether this Article 6 should also include these fees or not for the adaptation fund is another issue that needs to be solved. So, but given the fact that many countries have already submitted their NDCs since 2015, in advance of the Paris Agreement negotiation, can we assess whether we are on track or not against the objective established by the Paris Agreement? There are several studies, mainly driven by UNDP. This is another study, but there are converging to the same, let's say, considerations. Those are the greenhouse gas emissions present up to here. And then there is a scenario where no climate policies are implemented that would lead an increase of temperature 4.1, 4.8, so a disaster. If you look at the report I mentioned earlier, if we achieve this degrees, it's really it will be a real challenge to humanity. It needs to shrink, I think, in 1 billion of people rather than 9. If we consider the current policy, we would go up to 3.2 degrees. If we apply and consider that the pledges and targets are fully achieved and respected, which is not fully the case, but let's assume that, then we would achieve up to 2.8. So we are still out of the target that we established of 2 degrees and 1.5, I would say. So there is still a lot of efforts to be done to achieve those targets. And the more we move, we go along with time, and the more strong needs to be the reduction per year needed. This is a translation of the previous graph with the amounts of gigatons of CO2 that needs to be reduced. There is a gap. We see here conditional NDC and unconditional NDCs. What does it mean? That many countries, while putting forward their NDCs, establish some conditions. I mean, sorry, the cat needs to, one moment. I need to get out. Okay, someone else. It's reclining my attention. Wanted to know. Cats don't like closed doors. Going back, so some NDCs have a conditional part and unconditional. What does it mean? That they are unconditional part is that they would do those actions, achieve those targets anyway with their domestic effort, while the conditional part, they put an extra effort pending of the recipient of extra funds from international funds or from outside. So that's why we have this conditional and unconditional. And of course, the gap, in case also the conditional part is achieved, it's shorter, but anyhow, we have still to fill the gap of 16 gigatons of CO2 per year against an emissions of 55 on average, 53, I think, gigatons. So it's a lot, actually. It's a very strong reduction, also considering that to achieve the 1.5, we should achieve the zero balance between emissions and reduction, so reduce completely so zeroing completely the use of fossil fuel in 2050. Another door closed. There's the cat still. Okay, so this is the scenario prepared by. This is the scenarios provided by the PCC for the achievement of 1.5 target. So you see that the emissions need to be picked down very soon, and then achieve in 2050 around the zero emissions, and then go negative. Why negative? I mean, why we should achieve negative emissions? This means that we cannot actually foresee to zeroing completely our greenhouse gas emissions. There are emissions that are hard to be zeroed, like international transportation, aviation, and there are also methane emissions and nitrous oxide that are linked with agriculture activities that cannot really zeroed, and again, even if reduced, they cannot be removed because plants and vegetation and oceans cannot really sequester these two gases from the atmosphere. They don't enter in the photosynthesis or any other process, so we need to compensate. So nature needs to compensate not only the residual emissions in terms of CO2 from fossil fuel or any other sources, but also our products like cement, concrete production, actually emit CO2 in the industrial process and transformation. So all of these need to be compensated. So forests enter into this picture, providing this service, compensating those emissions and keeping the atmosphere in a neutral balance. But this has been proved that to achieve 1.5 is still not enough. We should also develop this bioenergy and carbon capture and storage technology that are not really operational at this time, but still needs to be developed to help nature to achieve or to provide this important service. So deep emissions, great contribution from forests, and some help with the time of this bioenergy and carbon capture technology. But if we don't do that, what's the scenario? If we delay the reduction of emissions, then and we don't provide, we don't help nature to assist us, so we still continue to deforest at the current pace and not actually protecting and preserving our environment, then we will need to have a strong contribution of this BECCS technology, which is not actually applicable at large scale. So we are more delayed and more insecure is our achievement of the targets. Just to give you a sense of what we would need as a reduction at global level, to achieve 1.5 degrees, we will need to decrease every year 7% of our emission up to 2030. And to achieve the 2 degrees, 2.6. If we consider that only 10 years ago, if we acted rapidly 10 years ago, we would have only to reduce by minus 3%. So the more we delay, the more effort is needed to achieve these targets. But what are the sectors that mostly contribute to these objectives? This is an assessment provided by UNDP, now UN Environment. 2 years ago, that was very interesting, although the new report from the IPCC are actually complementing this. But it was found very interesting to see that after energy industry sector, the third sector that have a large potential of reduction at a cost that it's less than $100 per tons of CO2, it's forestry sector, more than transport and buildings, but also agriculture has a large potential. So going to this role of land sector, I would like, if you don't mind, Danilo, I would like to, I don't know how long we are from.
Let me check for. It's 5 minutes. You have a clock inside your head because
yes.
you asked me.
5 5 minutes. Okay, so if you don't mind, I would like to stop here to gather some questions, because we are moving to a new subject.
Okay. So
if you don't mind, I mean, I would like to clarify, check if there are any questions or.
Okay, so question, please.
Don't tell me that everything was crystal clear, because when you have no questions, it means that wasn't clear, the presentation, or it was completely clear. Don't be shy. I mean, let's. Otherwise, I feel alone with my cat that wants to go everywhere.
Okay, maybe they have to digest all the information you provide them, and so if you agree,
may I ask a question? Probably you could also.
This is an inversion of the roles.
No, just to check, because I mean, I know that this course is attended by a wide variety of people coming from different sectors, and I'm just wondering whether feedback, whether all this information were well known from you, or you got some new information, or you would like to have more in depth of different aspects, because it's difficult to, I mean, making this presentation, I wanted to really to bring everybody from different, coming from different sectors and background on the same page, but it's always, I mean, there is always the risk to be boring or to give too much information, or so. My question is whether you gather new information or not from this presentation.
Okay, while they are thinking about the answer, there is a question for you from Lupa again. So land tenure might have greater implication on climate, but how do we ensure tenure governance can be a solution to the climate change too? I would like to know, maybe, sorry if I'm taking you off the topic, but it relates.
Yeah, I mean, land tenure, it's indeed key, and probably I would like also to keep on hold this for the next part, where we will go into the land role of the land sector within this climate policy. Indeed, it has been recognized that land tenure is key for two, I mean, I would say two aspects, which is one part is related to the forestry sector and forests that mainly in tropical countries, where sometimes the land tenure is not clearly defined. It's actually losing or opening the door for companies that may use this forest for other purposes and destroy actually this natural environment. So land tenure ownership from population that lives there, and the clear land tenure determination actually helps to prevent this kind of exploitment of the natural resources, but also from the side of agriculture. Indeed, when land tenure is well attributed and the adaptation capacity and the ownership, I mean, in terms also of preserving the natural environment, is higher and therefore more beneficial for. So, I mean, it's key. It's very important. But how much this can contribute, I would say a lot, but I cannot really quantify this. And I think it's if you are interested in this kind of governance, and you will find a lot of information in the IPCC report on land and climate. I suggest you to check also there for more details.
Okay, thanks. There is another question from Carmen. Hi, can you clarify the info about the new climate finance goal? Because my understanding is that parties would define a new prior 2025 from a floor of 100 billion.
Yes, I know that there are some discussion over that, especially consideration that if the US withdraw, it will be hard to achieve even the 100. But I'm not so in this discussion, so sorry, but I cannot provide more. I know that discussion going on in that sense, but I'm not so well. Sorry, I will.
Okay, and there is also a comment again from Carmen. Thank you so much for your presentation. So I would like to comment that 2021 will be an opportunity for countries to announce more ambitious NDCs.
Yes. This is also a big issue actually, because with the entering, 2020 would have been a very crucial point in the Paris Agreement process, because countries were requested to submit their upgrade of their NDCs. Not having the COP, of course, not all countries are always, when you have to make this kind of political declarations of such important actually for your economy, for your development of the countries, and touching upon an important economic sector. Indeed, the COP is the best way, the Conference of Parties is the best place where to make this kind of announcement. So even if you could do it, you still can do it to submit your updated NDCs. There was a delay with the moving of the COP to the next year. There was a delay of this kind of ambitious declaration. Although I must say that EU is going on in this respect. There was a recent declaration from the Commission to raise the ambition from 40% of reduction of emissions against 1990 up to 50%, 55%, which is a lot. It's more. Although the Parliament, this is a Commission proposal. It needs to go through the Council, the EU Council, which is formed by the government, and through the Parliament. So it still has to go through this process, but NGOs and the Parliament are already arguing that this is still not enough. We should go up to 60%, while the governments are already saying, no, it's too much, we will never achieve that. So we'll see how it will go through, but it's a good announcement that the EU anyhow has agreed to achieve zero net emissions in 2050. So this is also an increase of the target. Also China actually has made their announcement recently, last week, I think. So there are signs that they will peak. They said in the previous NDCs that they would peak soon their emission and going back. Now they have established, quantified. They say that they will peak in 2030, I think. And I'm looking. Sorry, I'm just looking for the details. But anyhow, they declared that they will achieve the zero balance of emissions in 2060, if I'm not wrong. So putting a long-term objective in their targets, which was something that was missing before. So there are some signs of big countries that are already announcing the intention to increase their ambition within the NDC, which is very good. The bad news is that on the 4th of November, US will be out. And this is, I mean, they cover 15% of the global emissions, but even more, they represent a very important economic player in the world. So but we will see. I mean, with this presidential election, how it will go, the issue, and anyhow, they will draw. In any case, even if Biden wins or not, because the president will be established in January. So it will be well beyond the withdrawal deadline, which is the 4th of November, 2 days after the elections. So yeah, it's a missed opportunity, unfortunately, this of the 2020. But I'm happy that some countries, big players, I would say, they are putting forward the ideas towards the increase of ambition. And thank you for remembering me to highlight this part, which I forgot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lucia. Are there any questions? They started asking questions rather than answering yours.
No, it's fine. I mean, it was also the
case to... I'm just kidding, but okay. If we are perfectly in time to have another 5-minute break, and then we can go on. You're ready for your third coffee, I guess.
No, I still have my first one.
It's a cold one, please.
It's a bit cold, but anyhow.
Okay, I'm stopping now the recording and see you in 5 minutes.